Good evening, everybody. I'm here right now solo. We're waiting for Laura. She has just moved to Los Angeles, the city of angels, but I guess not the city of Wi-Fi. Her Wi-Fi has gone out. She'll be on any minute. But first of all, I would like to say, if you are watching show for the first time, thank you. If you're listening, if you're not watching, thank you for listening. But tonight we have a very great show ahead of us. Something that I've been looking forward to since I, of course, met one of the fellas in October, and then, of course, met Tony many years ago. I've been looking forward to this show because it's something Laura and I have been wanting to kind of tackle together as a show. Well, we weren't able to get this as our first show because of pre-planning with Jeff Bellinger, who was our last guest with Arne Johnson and Alicia Marco Carlson, talking about, of course, the New England legends and satanic rites that have occurred in this area. So kind of doing something a little bit different. Not necessarily satanic, not necessarily a New England legend. Actually, well, it could be. I think it is a United States history legend in the form of the court system. Case that of trial of Arne Cheyenne Johnson that happened in 1981, and really kind of gave a segue of the understanding of defense in the United States judicial system. And the defense was demonic possession. The only time I'd ever heard of that defense prior was in a case in 1977 with Annalise McKell, where not only two Roman Catholic priests, but her family was, of course, sought to be guilty. And they had a 5-year sentence, and that 5-year sentence became 3 months of probation. But that's the only time I've ever heard in in history, not in U.S. history, but history, because that was in Germany, history in itself, that demonic possession was used as defense. And so it's an integral piece of history, an integral piece of modern history, the paranormal history, and what we look at nowadays with paranormal phenomenon. I'm not going to talk too long because Laura's not here. I wanted to ask her how her trip was and how she is working with this legendary private investigator out in Los Angeles, and what she's learned and what she's been able to kind of see out there. You know, it's a different kind of culture when it comes to New England and the West Coast. Very similar because we're all humans, but there's a different makeup of the people, of the cultures that are on different coasts. So I wanted to see what she's been noticing, if she's been able to kind of dig deeper into any more serial killer minds. Because, hell, like I said in the last show, I think there's over 1,800, 1,600 people that have performed a serial killing act out in California, or 1,600 serial killing deaths compared to a measly 150 in Massachusetts. Connecticut was like 140, and Rhode Island, I think, measly like 180 people. So there's a difference out there. But I'll stop talking. Nobody wants to hear me talk. They want to see the guests tonight. They want to hear Arne Johnson's story. They want to hear Tony Spera's perspective of it, the son-in-law of Ed and Lorraine Warren, and current NESPR Director, and also for former law enforcement himself. So it would be interesting to hear his perspective of it as well. So never, I'll bring Arne on. Arne, thank you. Sorry you had to hear me spiel. But I was trying to allow Laura to come in and to fix her issue, but I bet she'll make it at some point today.
Well, hopefully she will.
Yeah, it would be I think she'd be disappointed that she was looking forward to the show tonight, and she was as much as she came up with the concept of this idea, and it's her baby, and I really wanted it to come true as well. So, Arnie, who are you? Why are you here tonight? Why is your beautiful face under me right now that's cut in half? And what is the basis of your story? Like, what's your background?
Well, my background. Let me see. Well, I'm Arne Johnson. I'm from the case "The Devil Made Me Do It," and I'm here to talk about and tell people about the story, so they have an understanding of what's going on and what to avoid, and hopefully, no one has to ever go through it.
Yeah, and like I said, does it? And I'll ask you a question. To kind of bring Tony in, and we'll just get into it from there. And Laura can definitely integrate herself. She's very well at doing that. Is being the first case of demonic possession being as a defense in U.S. history. Does that ever follow you as an individual? Because regardless of how the paranormal goes, you'll always be a part of U.S. history, especially in 1981, and then with the book Devil in Connecticut coming out in 1983. How does that tackle your mind, especially dealing with it?
It was actually, I get a lot of feedback about it, even still today. People always question and ask why that defense was. A lot of people want to know why it wasn't allowed. I believe it would never be allowed. But yeah, I mean, we just you deal with it. I'm always willing to talk to people about it. It was, yeah. I actually spoke to the judge after I was released, and he really wanted to hear the case, and but he said he couldn't allow it.
Yeah, which is fascinating to me. And openly they swear upon the Bible, right,
Yep.
in court, and so that you're swearing upon God that you're not lying, basically, and not contempt. Like they allow that, but they don't allow the other theodicy, which is evil. There's good and evil, and it's always surprising to me that they didn't allow that to be heard because it's why not? And they allow one thing, why not allow the other?
Yeah, and we had all the documentation. The priests were there. Everybody was there. I mean, we had tape recordings of the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, for sure. And I think why we have the other piece of the puzzle tonight. Of course, we don't have Ed and Lorraine with us anymore, and we think of them greatly all the time, and we hope that they are still in peace. And but we brought a big piece of the puzzle, that somebody that's current director of NESPR, somebody that I highly respect. I know you're great friends with, and you guys built a friendship over the years. And that's Tony Spera. So let's bring him on, and he can introduce himself. Hey, Tony.
Hey guys, how are you tonight?
Hey, Tony.
Yeah,
Tony,
you both look handsome tonight.
Thank you. You as well. You look dapper, my sir. But for people that don't know who you are, Tony, and they are in a closet and they're watching the show for the first time, who is Tony Spera?
Yeah, that's a good question, but I'm going to give you a good answer. I met Ed and Lorraine way back in 1979, actually, when I was a police officer in Bloomfield, Connecticut. And, fate has its way of having people come together. And my wife, Judy, who's the daughter of Ed and Lorraine Warren, she lived in a different town from Bloomfield, and she worked in a different town from Bloomfield. But then one day, the owner of the dress shop that she worked in said, "Oh, we're going to move you to the dress shop in Bloomfield." And they did, probably about a month before I met her. So I was parked in an industrial driveway of a parking lot. She drives by on the main road, and she gives me a big wave and a smile, really big wave and a smile right to me. And I'm in the cruiser. And I said, I have to follow her and find out who this woman is because she's beautiful. So I get behind her And then I kind of lose her in traffic because the car pulled in front of me. But I saw where she went. She went into this strip mall with a dress shop. And I pull in, and I pull right up to the front door of the strip mall dress shop. And she comes to the door because she already gone in. She comes to the door. She looks at me. I waved at her. She gave me a funny look, a weird look. She kind of waved, turned right around, and went back in the store. She worked there, but I didn't know it. So I'm saying to myself, uh-oh, she's probably going to go back and call the chief, tell him that some cop is harassing her. Because she didn't look nice. She looked really like almost like annoyed when she came to the window or the door. So I'm waiting for a call from the chief. You know, I'm getting nervous. I'm getting paranoid. All of a sudden, I don't get a call from the chief on the radio, but I got a call from one of the other patrolmen. Not even 5 minutes later, he says, "Meet me behind this building." So I went and met him. The guy's name was Al, another cop. First thing he says to me, "Hey, did you just see a woman drive by in a brown station wagon and wave to you?" I'm like, "What's this guy, psychic or what?" I said, "Yeah, Al, why do you ask me that?" He goes, "Oh, she was looking for me. That's why she waved at you. She thought I was you or you were me." So then I laughed. And then I felt relieved that, you know, she didn't call the chief. She called Al and said, "Al, you know, I thought that was you." So she knew him as a friend. So he looks at me and says, "Well, you want to meet her? I'm not dating her or nothing. I just know her as a friend." I said, "Yeah, I want to meet her." That night I met her at a place called Jim Dandy's Fried Chicken place on Blue Hills Avenue in Hartford. And I was just getting off duty, but I had my uniform on. So I met her there and I asked her out on a date. And I went on a date with her for a couple dates. And then like one day she says to me, like on the third date, she says, "Do you want to see my parents lecture at UConn, University of Connecticut?" I said, "Lecture? What are they, college like professors or what are they?" She said, No, they're the Warrens, Ed and Lorraine Warren. They're ghost hunters. They're psychic researchers. But she had a different last name than that. Her name wasn't Warren because she was married previously. So I said, "Are you kidding me?" Because I heard the name before. I didn't know much about him. In 1979. I said, "Sure I do." So we went to Jorgensen Auditorium, met him in the green room behind the stage. I met Ed and Lorraine for the first time in October of 79. They were so friendly, so down to earth. But the part that got me was when I was sat in the audience with my wife, my future wife, watching this presentation that Ed and Lorraine put on. It was amazing. It blew your mind. And I actually got a little like spooked at some of the things he was showing. So after that, we went back to the green room and Ed's like, "How do you like the show, kid?" You know, like that. I said, "That was great." He said, "Well, let's go get a pizza somewhere." He always wanted to eat after a lecture, as Arnie will tell you. And so we go back to this pizza place in Storrs, Connecticut, and had a pizza. And I was right there. I was saying, "Ed, tell me more about these ghosts and these devils and stuff." And Ed was the kind of guy that just instantaneously he'd start to tell you a story. He'll go, "Well, let me tell you this." And he'd start another story. And it was fascinating. So after about 2 or 3 weeks, my future wife, I was still dating her. She said, "You want to go to dinner at my parents? They're going to have a turkey dinner." And I went. And of course, I met them again. And Ed's like, "You want to see the museum, kid?" He's calling me kid. You know, I was like 29 years old. "You want to see the museum, kid?" And he brought me down to see all the artifacts. And I was spooked at that. I was really spooked. He's saying, like, "You should never be in this place alone." And he was right, because it was scary when you're in there alone. But so that's how I became to know them and to start working with them. It took me a few years to actually go on a case with them. But I used to help them out before that, like on their lectures. I used to set up their equipment. And I'd sit in the audience or sit behind the projector and listen to everything they said, listen to the Q&A to try to gather information. Then after we'd go out and eat, Ed and Lorraine and I'd ask them more questions like, "Ed, you know, you're talking about a poltergeist," or "Ed, you were talking about a doppelganger. You know, what is that?" And those kind of things. And that's how I started to learn more and more about Ed and Lorraine. But getting to, and so I started out as a police officer, and I quit after about 9 years as a cop and did other jobs. But then I also worked with Ed and Lorraine, you know, volunteering with them. But as far as Arnie's case goes, I remember Ed coming over to my house one time, right at the beginning. He said, "Boy, what a case this is." And he started to tell me about it, about the Debbie Glatzel an Arne Johnson case, he called it. And I'll tell you what, it's a fantastic, crazy, wild case that Arne will attest to. But the one thing I remember Ed telling me was, Arnie's a brave kid. He's a good kid, but he did something that wasn't so smart. I go, what do you mean, Ed? He said he challenged the demonic. I said, what do you mean he challenged the demonic? What did he do? So he told me the whole story about David Glotzel, about the possession of David, about what was happening with David. Now, Arne was the boyfriend of Debbie, and Debbie's brother was David Glotzel. So he wants to protect the family, Arne. He was about 18 years old at the time. And one time when things got really hairy in the house, and Arne will tell you more about that, Arne made the mistake of saying, don't pick on him, with the 11-year-old kid, David. Don't pick on him. I'm a man. Pick on me. Come to me. Do something to me. Challenge me. He wanted to get all the effects that was happening to David off of David and take care of himself, because he didn't know any better. He didn't know that you can't fight the demonic physically. That's how it all started. But let me just fast forward real quick to like 1990s. Ed was doing like a little ghost safari tour. He signed up these people who paid to go on a tour of different haunted locations in Connecticut. So Lorraine, me, and Ed took about 12 to 15 people on a tour around different haunted locations, like haunted houses in Newtown. We took them to the to the Union Graveyard, to the Union Cemetery. We took them to the Hannah Crana Witch's grave. We took them to a bunch of places, but one place we stopped was St. Joseph's Church in Brookfield. And that's where the exorcism of David happened. And Arne can tell you some more too. But what I want to just tell you is that there was one guy there. It's about 1990, 91 maybe. There's one guy there. He had a little micro recorder on him, those little tiny cassette things, and it wasn't digital. He's recording Ed as Ed's talking in the parking lot of St. Joseph's Church and school. He has the group around him. Ed's talking about the exorcism of David and what's happening with the priest and trying to hold him down and everything. And then we leave and go to another location. So everything's fine. That night, one of the guys who had that little micro recorder stopped back at Ed's house and said, Ed, you got to listen to this. Ed says, what are you talking about? He said, I got something on this micro recorder. It's weird. He goes, but I have to play it backwards. So it says, what do you mean what do you mean? Listen to this. So he plays it forward and you don't hear anything. You hear Ed talking. He's able to play it in reverse and you hear, why are you here? In a deep, gravelly voice. Why are you here? When he played it backwards. That freaked me out, freaked Ed out too. Ed's like, that's the devil. That's the demonic entity telling us to get the hell out. So Ed said, can I borrow that tape? And Ed borrowed the tape, showed it to these forensic people, and I don't know who exactly they were, but they were supposedly experts in recordings. And they said, Ed, this tape has not been edited or spliced or anything. They were actual physical tape. He goes, it hasn't been edited, it hasn't been spliced. There's something on that tape that we can't explain. That was the devil still around when we talked about that case. The devil is real, as Arne will tell you, and Ed would have told you, and I'll tell you, and you know, James.
Yes,
that
I
the
do.
devil is real, and the devil comes in sneaky ways.
Yes.
He's the father of lies, and that case in Brookfield, as Arne will tell and attest to. Ed told me later. He said, "Tone, I'm so angry." I said, "Why?" He goes, "That stupid, judge." And he talked about the judge not allowing it. He goes, "We had the evidence that would have exonerated Arne." I says, "You did?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "We had priests and experts telling us that yes, he was possessed. At that moment, he was diabolically possessed by a demonic entity that entered him." See, the demonic, James, as you probably know, doesn't come when you challenge it necessarily. It comes when it feels like it, when the opportunity is right. In other words, the devil's waiting for Arne to do something he could impose himself onto Arne. So when Arnie was in the backyard or back place near the kennel with Bono, I guess they had an argument. I don't know. Arnie can tell you more, but Arnie doesn't even remember. The devil right there said, "That's my opportunity to get back at this kid who challenged me," because the devil doesn't want to lose versus a human. A human being to them is disgusting. It's just nothing. They hate him because it's made it in God's image. So now the devil's like, this kid challenged me, I'll show him. And that's when it happened, when Arnie doesn't remember anything happening except waking up in custody with handcuffs on him. So that's how the devil operates. But Ed had information. Ed had experience. Ed had recordings. He had witnesses who were priests and doctors, a forensic doctor that was on scene also, Dr. Jean Grasso, who could have testified and showed the court that the devil was at play here. So Arnie will go on more about what happened to him, but if that was allowed in that case, Arnie would have got off. I'm sure he would have.
Yeah, most definitely. And before we segue into Arnie, you know, we talking about beauty and angels and being in the city of angels, like it looks like she is with that light. Thank you for finally making it, hon.
Nice.
How was your? I wanted to ask you, how was your move to LA?
It's getting there. It's stressful, but it's yeah, I just found a place and I'm settling in really nice.
Very well. Yeah, definitely. I was a little scared at first because this is something you've been looking forward to. You know, thankfully we have an hour and a half, so by 9 o'clock we still have an hour to get into the meats and potatoes of all this. So, Laura, do you have any questions? That Arnie and Tony both introduced themselves. If you have anything that you want to bring to the table before Arnie kind of gets involved with the story, please do so, because you're joining late, so I want you to have a piece of the puzzle as well.
Well, you know, I was just talking to somebody, and I go, you know, Arnie is the first person who committed murder, who has said that they were demonically or devilly possessed, whatever you want to call it. And they're like, really, he's the first? And I was like, yeah, well, I haven't had any killers tell me, at least the serial killers, they pretty much say, like, I want to kill, it's from within me. They don't blame it on darkness or the devil or demonic. So, and I was like, it's really fascinating that I get this opportunity to speak with you, because this is my first time I get to speak with somebody like this.
Well, can I interject something before we go on? Is it okay if I talk?
Of course.
Yeah. First of all, you wouldn't call it murder, or we wouldn't, because murder has to have an intent to kill. And Arnie doesn't remember doing that. He was overtaken by a demonic entity. So we wouldn't say he's a murderer or a killer. We would say though, yes, he killed somebody, but he didn't know it because he woke up in custody, you know, from being black. He either blacked out or the devil just overtook his mind, or whatever happened. When you're diabolically possessed, as James will attest, you know, you're not you. Something overtakes your mind, takes over everything about you. You don't remember being even under possession. A possessed person doesn't know, oh, I'm under possession at this moment. They don't know that at all. So I just want to clear that part up. That
of course,
you wouldn't
Arnie
you wouldn't call him murderer. You'd call him someone who took someone's life but didn't know it.
Okay. Right. And even when that did happen, I mean, we were leaving the apartment. We were leaving because things were getting a little violent. So, and I don't remember anything after that. I remember starting to walk out the apartment. The next thing I know, when I came to, I was in custody in a cell.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost like a lost time. Alien abduction, you know?
Yeah.
It's almost like an alien abduction in a way, where you don't remember anything that happened, only you can't account for the time. That's what happened to Arnie.
Yeah, definitely. And I like to use the analogy that Arnie was the tool. You know, a hammer's not meant to bash somebody's skull in, but somebody can use it to do so. And Arnie was that physical being to kind of create that diabolical nature, and he was that hammer, and unfortunately, unknowingly.
Right.
So yeah, I definitely get that.
Because remember this too, Ed Warren and Lorraine Warren wouldn't have put their careers on the line, wouldn't have put their reputations on the line if they didn't truly believe that Arnie was innocent of murder. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So he was actually innocent of anything because his body was overtaken by, like you say, like a tool. So for Ed and Lorraine to put their whole career and their whole reputation on the line like that says a lot.
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
really curious because Ed and Lorraine called the police a couple times before this ever even happened, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, they didn't call the police. So Lorraine actually and Ed went to the Brookfield police station, and they said, and Lorraine said, I think something terrible is going to happen. Now, remember, Lorraine's psychic. She said something terrible is going to happen. And you know what she said too to the cops? She said, I believe it involves a knife. She said that to the cops. It's in the report. And the cops said, well, there's nothing we can do until there's a crime committed. That's
Did
what
she
happened.
know who it was going to happen to, or like
No.
who's no?
No, she just felt a darkness. She felt a dread. She felt something terrible was going to happen, like through vibrations or however a psychic picks it up through her sensitivity. But she didn't know specifically it was going to be Arne stabbing someone unknowingly. She just knew that something terrible would happen, or she foresaw something terrible might happen, and it did.
Now, did Lorraine make this call after she had gone to the house with your brother, Arne?
I believe she did. I didn't know she had made that call. But yeah, all that was prior to the case with David going through the possession and lesser forms of exorcisms, and it was a long case, and it was pretty volatile. Yeah.
So, Arne, how long did this whole thing go on with David, in your estimation?
Estimation. It was a good 5 to 6 months, I would say.
Yeah. And a lot of weird stuff happened in the house, right? A lot of weird stuff.
Oh yeah, there was scratchings, levitations, poundings, a lot of orbs in the beginning.
Yep.
Yep, it was all that stuff. I remember when Ed and Lorraine first came there, and he was tripped outside, and David was just under oppression back then, but he was told that they would trip him on purpose, and they also had the doctor with them.
Yep.
To check David out to make sure everything was good.
Yep.
And then Lorraine picked up on it right away. We were all sitting at the kitchen table. And then Ed started to do some religious provocation because of what it was telling David to say to Ed.
Right.
So so Ed started saying, well, if you're as strong as you say you are, prove yourself to me. Show me what you can do.
Right.
And then the kitchen table started to lift up in the air.
Really?
And vibrate.
See?
And then,
So one thing I want to add, Arne, before you continue, is that I think people, of course, I think a lot less people in this time have read The Devil in Connecticut more so than maybe our forefathers and individuals in the 80s, 90s. But the modern sense of people kind of jump to movies and, of course, entertainment. And there was a movie, of course, done on the situations that you dealt with called The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It. And, of course, we understand, and Tony's smiling because I've heard him say this many times that, they, little by little, they've gotten lower in percentage of the accuracy of the actual story. And seeing the movie The Conjuring 3 and seeing you be depicted on the silver screen, what actually occurred to that in those moments for you and for David than what was depicted in the movie?
It was the movie was based on a story, but they just took it in a different direction. Yes, there was possession that took place, a battle. Yes, I challenged the demons to take me on instead of him, trying to protect him. I came under demonic attack a few times that I don't know of, only just what I was told. And then, and unfortunately, murder happened. And I went to prison.
So yeah, like Arne liked to say, and I like to say, the name of the movie was good. The Devil Made Me Do It. Possession happened. The prison part happened. They got married. That happened.
Hmm.
David had problems with possession. That happened. But it was like about 5 to 10% accurate. Is the way it really happened. And that's just the way movies are. And people don't understand because The Conjuring 1, like I said, was about 65, 70% accurate. But there's a lot of stuff that they just assume or they just throw in for scares. Like at the end of The Conjuring 1, there was no sheet put over Carolyn. There was no levitation of the chair. The chair didn't flip over. Those kind of things. Judy wasn't under the water and then Lorraine trying to grab her. That's Conjuring 1. That didn't happen. That's all for effect of a Hollywood to make it a dramatic entertainment piece. You know, I tell people, you know, first of all, they're not documentaries, first of all. That's number one. And number two, if it were a documentary, it still wouldn't be 100% accurate.
Right.
If you watch a documentary or read a book about Abe Lincoln, rest assured, it's not 100% accurate about what Abe was thinking alone in his room when he was pondering something. That's something somebody made up, thinking that's probably how he felt.
Right.
It's never 100% right. So even a true documentary, if you watch a documentary on JFK, it's probably 40% right. You know, so
I will tell you
people start to think that, oh, you know, like just a quick example, Conjuring 1. You know how many people have come to me and said, gee, Lorraine came out of her room and didn't talk to anybody for 9 days. What was that all about? That was in Conjuring 1. That never happened. Patrick Wilson looked at Roger Perrin and said, you know, Lorraine had a bad case and she came out. It took a little piece of her. She came out. She didn't talk for 8 days or 9 days. That never happened. But people continuously say, what was the case about? What happened to Lorraine? It's not true. It's not a documentary.
Yeah.
She did have a time when she never spoke. That really happened, and we never told the producers any of this. But when Lorraine's father passed away, February 18th, 1968, Lorraine was an adult. She was married to Ed, but she didn't talk or open her mouth and say a word for 9 months because she was so grief-stricken over her father. People don't know that story, but that's the real story, is why she didn't speak. But it was for 9 months. She wouldn't even talk. She wouldn't talk to her mother. She wouldn't talk to her daughter. She wouldn't talk to anybody. And then one day she just started to talk.
Yeah, I do want to plug too, Tony, quickly, and it's something that's not talked about because The Conjuring, of course, outshines, you know, modern cinema. Is that you guys did a shock doc as well that was pretty damn well, I think.
That was a lot more accurate than any of the movies. Actually, the accuracy of those was accurate. And when people want to know things, like they ask me about Lindley Street, I tell them, watch that movie, watch that documentary that the road, I forget the name of it, to the road with Ed and Lorraine Warren and Crossroad or whatever it was, with the shock doc, because it tells a lot. The case on Lindley Street was really tremendous, actually.
Laura, do you have anything? If not, I have a good question from the chat.
Oh, you can ask first. I'll go.
All right. Sarah Youssef, which is a regular for both Carl's and I show and now Laura and I show, and she is very knowledgeable. She asked, and this is for Arne directly, as someone who has been through this ordeal, is there any knowledge that you have gained now that you had wished you had then? I think you went through a big ordeal, Arne. You were in prison? Was it prison for 5 years, correct?
Yes. Yep.
So you must have had a lot of time to self-diagnose the situation, kind of heal and process what occurred, and you're challenging. So to answer that question, what would you wish you had then that you have now?
I wish I had a lot more knowledge than I had then that I have now, because I would have never challenged the demons the way I did. I could have handled it probably a lot more better, you know.
Did it make your faith stronger? Like, were you always a Christian man? But did you make it stronger connection to God?
My faith became very strong, and that's what protects me still to this day, you know. It's very strong.
Remember that Arne came out of prison. Most guys who come out of prison, first of all, they're hardened, you know, when they come out of prison, and a lot of guys don't make too much of themselves. They go back in, they repeat. But Arne said to himself, maybe it's the faith that helped too. I'm going to make something of myself. And now Arne is the supervisor or superintendent of a big construction company. He's got a lot of guys. How many guys you got working under you, Arne? A lot, right?
Yeah, a couple hundred.
A couple hundred guys working under him. Like, how many guys who were in prison, they got out of prison, can say that? They meander around, a lot of them. They don't do anything. They take drugs. They get drunk. They hang out in the bar. Woe is me, you know. Oh boy, this happened to me. Arne said it happened, but that's behind me. I'm going to move on and make something of myself, and he did.
Definitely. I agree with you, Arne. I work for an HVAC company. We'll have to do work for you. So this is another question for you, Arne. I think you're the tape on this. Tony's amazing. Laura's amazing. But this is your story. People want to definitely hear it. Arne, are you? Hey, Laura, unmute yourself because you're getting an echo. Just unmute yourself when you're ready to talk. Arne, are you completely clear now of any demonic activity? And if I may ask, how did you separate it from in custody? Your story is one of us from the UK. Find mind-blowing. So Andy's from the United Kingdom, and they've heard your story, which is even quite fascinating, right?
Mm-hmm. As far as prison, the only thing that really took place in prison for me was when I was first incarcerated at maximum security. There was a small little tin ashtray on this little table. It slid across the table, and I heard the voice came out and said, "You lose," and it was the demonic just telling me I lost. And then it was faith that kept me going after that. I mean, there was a couple of incidents where other inmates said they saw me floating around the cell, but I don't know about that. I was just told that. Basically, I just did my time and kept the faith. My faith kept me protected.
Yeah, which makes sense. You know, I think a lot of people watch these entertainment movies and they think that the person that's under possession tends to know what's going on, and that's not the fact. It's like your consciousness is kicked out from your physical body or wherever your consciousness floats, if it's in your brain or wherever, you know, and then people don't actually know that they're possessed. And that's what I tell a lot of people dealing with cases, and I know Tony as well. If you're the first person coming out saying, I'm possessed, then is it really accurate? Or is this what you wanting to happen? So like for you not knowing that these things occurred, like the levitation, if that did occur, but if you saw that, I can see how that's true, because for one, if you're under that influence, that's the one thing that it does want to attack you, and you're going to feel this, but it tries to make it an internal thing, like your self-doubt, instead of it actually being a masquerade that's manipulating you. So it's fascinating you say that the other people had experienced it around you, especially when you were in prison.
Yeah, and for an example, it's like when I went to the well, and I went to the well where it was emanating from. Mm-hmm. And when I was back there, I found the well in Newtown in the house, and I had this black mass just come up and appear before me. Mm-hmm. And it was very, very black and dense. Well, the eyes were blacker than black, and when I was looking into the eyes, it was drawing me into like a different dimension. Mm. And as I was being drawn into it, the next thing I know, I was inside the Newtown house, and Debbie was slapping me in the face because she said I was under attack, and it was just her and I there. And when I came to. And when you come to, you're totally dead exhausted. It's like you just fall to the ground. You have no energy. And she was slapping me in the face and crying and screaming. She goes, shy. You were possessed. But you don't know that. It's just like you lose that span of time, you know?
For sure. Laura, you guys know?
Yeah, well, I don't know too much about the case or what happened and everything. I'm really curious because and I don't know, like, if is there a difference between like a devil and a demon possession?
Demonic possession. There's lower devils and there's higher devils, and then there's the devil, Satan. They're minions, they're legends. So there's a lot of legion, I should say. There's a lot of demonic entities out there, more than we know. And it could be a smaller demon, a lower demon that can occupy a body, possess a body. It's not always Satan. It's not going to be just Satan, the devil. It's just like when people say to me, I saw God or I talked to God. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But, I got a lot of people saying that come to me and say, I spoke to Jesus. Well, I speak to Jesus too. I just haven't had a one-on-one physical where I could see him. I never saw him, but I talked to him, of course. But getting back to the demonic, there's lower hierarchies of just different hierarchies of devil and demonic. Some are stronger than others. Some are harder to break. That's why if you heard of Father Gabriel Amorth, which I'm sure James knows about, he was an exorcist in Rome. He did hundreds of exorcisms. Yes, there you go. There you go. Some of the exorcisms took months. Not only one exorcism, might have been, 50 exorcisms to get it to go away because the devil was so strong that was in that person. It's like anything else. Some are stronger than others. But it's always the faith of the person in general. It's the faith of the exorcist. How pious, how faithful is that, and how much sacrifice did the exorcist give up to be effective? In other words, you have to be pure. You have to be in a state of grace. So you could have an exorcist who's not really pure and not in a state of grace, but he may tout himself as being a good exorcist, and he does an exorcism and it doesn't work, or it may work slightly and help a little bit, and then it comes back because the exorcist wasn't powerful enough in his demands, in his commands, because the devil knows and sees right through that fake exorcist or the one who's not very pious. So it has to do with the strength of the demon or devil and the piousness and the holiness of the priest that's doing it.
Lord, that answer your question?
Yeah, it actually cleared up a lot. Arnie, I was wondering, after you provoked whatever entity it was from your little brother, did you have like any signs after that? Did you feel ill, or was there like any, like you said, any like black masses like you were talking about? Like, were there any other signs?
I mean, actually, when I actually challenged them, nothing occurred right away, but it just came in different phases of different attacks. I've been thrown out a door by nothing through the kitchen door. I was picked up. I felt the ice coldness hit me in the chest, and I just flew right across the room and out the door. Most of the time, it was just battling for David, and then there was incidents where they tried to kill me when I was doing tree work. I had, and it was predicted that they were going to kill me that day, and my knot just totally untied, and I bounced off branches as I was falling, and luckily my ankle got stuck in a V crotch, and it stopped my fall, so I was protected in that way. There was another incident where a black mass appeared for me, and my car just started running down the hill, started up. The door's locked. I tried putting it in park, emergency brakes, and it was just flying towards a tree. But thank God it stopped just before the impact.
Yeah, go ahead, Laura.
I was going to say, do you guys know what a black mass could mean? Like, what could that be?
Yeah, a black mass is never good. Never good. If something was pure and holy, like say your dead grandmother is going to come to you, she's not going to come as a black mass. She's going to come as something pure and something inviting, because your grandmother, your mother, your loved one doesn't want to scare you, right? So you're not going to have a black mass at the foot of your bed swirling, or a darker than dark, like Arnie said. That is evil. When you get something that's dark and a mass like that comes and frightens you, that's a tip off. When something frightens you, you can tell automatically it's not good. Because if my grandmother came to me, or my mom who passed away came to me, I'd feel good about it, because she wants me to feel good. God is allowing her to come to me out of maybe because I need it. I need to see my mom who passed away.
Mhm.
And it's called a visitation apparition. That's like a gift from God. An apparition is somebody that you recognize, like your mom, your dad, Abe Lincoln, whatever, like I talked before. You recognize it, you call it an apparition. You don't recognize it, it's a stranger to you, it's a ghost. That's the only difference between a ghost and an apparition. But a visitation apparition is something that God allows because perhaps the loved one needs that to continue on, and it's so grief-stricken. So a mother who sees a soldier who's killed overseas in battle, moments after he dies, you see a specter of your son or daughter at the foot of your bed, and then it vanishes. That's something beautiful. That's something good that God allowed to happen, so that life lives on after the death of the physical form. But a demonic entity doesn't care about any of that. Doesn't want to make you feel good. Wants to scare you. Darkness is frightening. So.
Yeah, I want to add to the black mass thing is I'm actually dealing with the case. This is the first time I've ever come across it, where there's two police officers that do investigations, such as yourself, like Tony, formerly, of course, where the woman is actually, and this is on video and now just, of course, documented by the local diocese, is this woman is actually, it's not coagulation because she got medically tested, it's actually vomiting black tar. And it's actually on video, and I have the video, and I can't show it right now until everything's all good. But it's something that's first time for me. But this black mass is coming out of her, and from what I understand, she was at a diocesan church. I told her to go to the church, and I told them to tell her to go to church. She went to the church, and she started having an attack. And the black mass she vomited came out, and it started moving. And it sounds mind blowing. Like, I'm like, oh my holy moly. But yes, why would that be a positive situation? Why would she be vomiting out a black mass if it was good, right? And that definitely shows that these things can do things to us. And like you said, black is not inviting, it's the absence of light. So it wants to show you and scare you and play into your fears.
Right.
And actually, in one of the exorcisms that was taking place, Ed tried to bind this demon and back in his shop, and he also saw the black mass and said it was a tar figure. Remember, Tony?
Yeah.
And then it was so powerful that he had to actually back away.
Actually, isn't that the one, Arnie, where he said you saw like a kaleidoscope of faces?
Yep.
You saw a kaleidoscope of demonic entities appearing in front of him on the head of this mass. He said it was like, the way Ed said it, he said it was like 43 devils. This kept flowing in and out. He said it was so powerful, like you said, he had to back off. Probably use religious resistance, which would be like, in the name of Jesus Christ and the blood of Christ, I command you to leave and go back to where you came from, over and over. If you can't yell it out, you say it in your mind. Like a lot of people will ask, I know people in the audience will have a phenomena when they awaken at night, but they can't move. They can't. They're paralyzed. They can't move. They can't yell out. They can't scream. They can't move their arms or leg. They can't even move their eyes, and that's called psychic paralyzation, or phantomania. We call it phantomania or psychic paralyzation. But if you talk to a medical person, they'll immediately dismiss that.
Yeah,
say no. It's
syndrome.
They'll say no. It's hypnagogia.
Yeah.
Hypnagogia, where you get this medical condition, and psychological, where you freeze up and you can't. But that's not true. I mean, it could be true. That could happen. The way you would know is if you repeat in your mind over and over, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to leave and go back to where you came from. If it's something evil or demonic, it's going to lift off, because people report feeling a pressure on their chest.
Yeah, I've had it happen plenty of times, and you're right.
There you go.
You're actually pinned. You can't move. You can't say anything, and you just keep saying the prayer over and over, and then it'll lift off. You can feel the weight on your chest. It holds your head sideways. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking.
There you go. And a lot of people report that happening, and it's because what it really is, Arne, and it's a demonic trying to possess you. It's trying to get into your body, and that's why it wants to freeze you up. That's why a lot of people too will have that happen to them. They'll see something at night while they awaken, and they try to wake their spouse, and the spouse won't wake up because the demonic entities is paralyzing them too. They doesn't want them to see what they're doing or know what they're up to. Like just isolate the person, scare you more because nobody's going to help you. Your husband's not going to wake up. Your wife's not going to wake up. And that's how it is. The demonic, remember, hates us. See, people don't realize, they think like the devil's not at work all the time. The devil's at work right now, very, very much so in the world right now. And remember, evil comes from influence of the demonic. So when somebody says, like, we're talking about the serial killers, I'll just give you an example of what I mean, Laura. You talk about serial killers. They kill 20 people, 30 people. They murder, they dismember, they rape them. Then they go to trial and they get a psychological exam. And the psychologists go, no, they're not insane. They could stand trial. Now, let me ask you a question. How can a sane person, dismember people, kill little babies, rape women, destroy them, destroy families, and not have and still be sane? How? Because they're demonically influenced. So when they're not under demonic influence, they seem like they're sane when they get tested by a psychologist or a psychiatrist. All this evil that's happening in the world right now is due to demonic influence. I'm convinced. It's not because, well, part of it is because God allows free will. But in that free will, if you're a weak person, if you're a weak-willed person, you're going to let that demonic influence come to you and influence your mind. Like something comes to Vladimir Putin, says, hey, don't worry about it. Don't worry about killing people. Just take over the country. Something in his mind tells him that's a good thing to do. Kill people, babies, we don't care because we want that land. Something is influencing the weak mind, in my opinion. So the demonic is at work all the time. And that's why we tried to get the defense of Arne, because the demonic, Ed had evidence that the demonic influenced Arne to do this. Of course, the courts don't want to hear that. But I'm here to tell you that demonic influences a lot of weak-willed people. It looks for the weakest link. If you're psychologically weak, you're a weak-willed person. You don't have strong faith. You don't pray. You don't even think about God. You could be under the influence of the demonic very, very simply, very easily, because you don't have that armor of protection. You don't have that armor of protection around your body, around your aura, which is faith and God's armor, to protect you. So you're going to allow these things to influence you, and come through your aura. The aura, the supernatural glow around your body, everybody has it. Everybody's born with a perfect one where nothing can get through it and harm it spiritually. But through life, through maybe being a cruel type of a person, because God gave us free will, remember, a cruel type of a person, an alcoholic, a drug user, heavy drug user, somebody who's very dysfunctional, likes to argue, likes to beat up their wife, like they get pleasure out of that somehow. They can get more and more influence. The devil picks the weakest link. You like to hurt people, it's going to make you want to hurt people more. You like to drink, it's going to tempt you to drink more, and get. We don't want you to resolve that alcoholism. We want you to get drunk. We want you to stay drunk so you be a nothing. That's what the devil, his whole ploy is, to keep you out of heaven. To keep you out of heaven because he can't get there either. So that's it.
Well, what's your take on that as somebody that has a master's degree in psychology? What's your take on that?
I had a follow-up question for Tony because I never heard that before, and it's interesting. So they go after the weakest part of you. Like if somebody, like you just said, if someone wants to drink, they'll do the drink. They'll make them drink more.
Attempt you to drink more. Like, okay, your mind. Oh, I can have another one. I can stop whenever I want. It's an influence. Now, but some people resist it because they have strong faith and will. Strong will, strong faith. Like, no, I might drink tomorrow, but I'm not going to drink today. Like, if you read the 12 tenets of alcoholism, it's all about faith. It's all about faith. And that's what stops people from drinking. So that's just an example, though. But yeah, but also remember this, too. you could be mentally disturbed and under the influence of a devil, because like I talked about the weak-willed, somebody who's mentally ill has a mental issue. So people say, oh, they're crazy, they're mental. Well, that's possible, yes, but they could be mental, and I should say mentally ill and possessed, both. They can be both. I mean, can't somebody be a drug addict and an alcoholic? Yeah, they can be mentally ill and possessed by a demonic entity, or separately, just mentally ill, just possessed, or both. Just three, not just two. It's possessed, not possessed, mentally ill and possessed.
Laura?
Oh, I didn't know I was unmuted. There's one question I have for Arnie because I've been curious about this. So you were married when everything was happening with your brother, and then I just want to say, just like Tony said about the movies, for everybody who knows, and even documentaries, they are not factual all the time, especially with the movies, they are dramatized. But in the movie, they had your wife there. Was she there during the incident?
Actually, yeah, she was present for the incident. And we got married in prison, Laura.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
so you guys were dating then? Okay.
Yes. And that was her little brother, David.
So what happened with did she have any did she see anything from you, or did she, have any experience like right after you had tempted him and were going through that? Like, what were her experiences?
As far as the case?
No, I mean like with the paranormal, like when everything started, like what did she notice anything with you or different in that kind of sense?
Yeah, so I don't remember anything about the case, but she told me that she was in between us, and she goes, I don't know how he was injured and I wasn't. She heard growling. She said my eyes were totally black, and I'm only going by what I was told because I don't have no recollection of what happened.
That's so you actually went around her?
I don't know.
Wow.
It's probably, you got married, that probably happened so quickly too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like the whole thing was probably a split second. But I guess what Debbie was trying to say is like the way you were thrashing probably and growling and everything, it was amazing that she didn't get stuck in the middle with a knife or whatever, So
that's what I was saying. I'm like,
Yeah.
I wonder, do you think there's a reason she was saved?
Well, who knows? I mean, she has a lot of faith, remember. Sometimes the devil goes just for one at a time, you know what I mean? So we don't know the answer to that.
And she didn't challenge
We'll never know the answer.
Yeah, and she didn't challenge either. I have a question from Jennifer in the chat. Others have asked some of what we have discussed, but could you share how does the demon leave you if there was no exorcism performed? Does it continue to lie within you? That's a good question. I know the answer to it. I know Tony does too. But Arnie, for you, does it still lie within you? And then for Tony, because you're the guest, why was the demon allowed to kind of separate itself with Arnie if an exorcism wasn't performed?
Who wants to answer first?
I think you would handle this answer better, but as far as my faith keeps me protected. I know I still have some challenges now and then, but I deal with it, and I know how to, like the paralyzation. But I'm protected. My armor's strong. It's good, and yeah, I don't fear it at all.
Good. Yeah, Arnie's been free of that for years and years, and it's because of the faith, like we talked about the suit of armor of protection. It's simple. It's like if Arnie wasn't protected by faith, it'd be like a police officer going into a house where there's a guy with a gun. He's not wearing his vest. He's not carrying his gun. He has no protection. He's going to get shot. But if you have the vest and you have protection, the suit of armor, the faith is your vest. You know what I mean? And your protection is the gun is prayer. The gun is prayer. So when you have that, you're protected. But you got to believe what you're saying too. You can't just say a prayer just like you're reciting a poem. You got to believe what you're saying.
Mhm.
But as far as getting rid of the demonic, you're never going to kill it, but you can get it out of you. In other words, casting out of spirits, that's an exorcism, is the casting out of devils and demons of a person or of a house. So when you're doing a ritual Romanum, the rite of exorcism in the Catholic faith, you're through prayer, through God's intercession, through prayer, through God, through the priest, you're commanding the demonic to leave and go back to where it came from, wherever that may be, hell, wherever. You're never going to destroy it, though. So that's the casting out. That's why I said when, like, say, when you're paralyzed at night when you're sleeping, you don't just say, I command you to leave. You say, I command you to leave and go back to where you came from. Mm-hmm. In the name of God, I command. So I can't say, Tony Spera commands you to leave. They don't want it. I'm a human being. They don't care about my intercession. But when you invoke God's name, that's powerful. When you say, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to leave now and go back to where you came from, that's a big difference. You say it over and over with faith, knowing it's going to work. You can't say, I don't think this is going to work, but I'm going to say it anyway. That doesn't work. It's all in the spiritual realm. You have to have faith. Mm-hmm. Like when God says, believe in me as your creator, I'm your almighty creator. Do you agree with that? If you say, no, I don't agree with that, good luck going to heaven, because now you don't believe in God. So it's like you have to have that strong belief. That's all he asks. God wants you to love him. Don't love the devil. Go away from the devil and follow him. That's all God wants. But a lot of people today, they discard the fact that God is a real entity. They discard the fact that the devil is a real entity, not just some fictional figure in the Bible. The devil is real. There's always a balance, the plus and the positive. That's why God gave us the choice. You want to be in heaven? Do heavenly things like I command. You want to go somewhere else? Go follow him. You got free will, pal. But I'm telling you how to get to be with me. Here's what you got to do. Right? And he tells you, you got to love me. You got to love your neighbor. You got to not kill other people or murder other people. Murder. You might kill somebody in a war or whatever. That doesn't mean you're not going to heaven, because you're saving your butt. You're saving your life for your country. I'm not talking about that. Don't go cheat on your wife. Don't steal stuff. Basic things. But if you want to just willy-nilly, don't care about any of that stuff, you're going to invite the devil. Because now you're making room for the devil by not doing those things. So if you fill up this bottle with heavenly holy water, nothing else can get in, right? But if I empty it, something else can get in. So you empty the good stuff out and the bad stuff can go in. Same thing with a person. You always have to fill yourself with God's love, and that'll keep you going. And that's what Arne did to stave off any more problems with the demonic.
Yeah, Tony, I love how us Italians are very animatronic with our all the time.
I had a quick question for Arne. When did you come to, like, the blackout? Like, how long did it take you to come out of it?
Well, I don't know how long the period was. All I know is I was in a cell when I was in custody, and I came to.
Yeah, it had to be a while. It had to be a while, because he said he started to walk outside, right? You started to walk outside, and that's the only thing you remember, starting to go outside. The next thing you remember is handcuffs in custody.
Right.
So that could have been a half an hour or more, where they brought him to the station, put him in the jail cell, the whole thing.
And then even when I was in there and I did come to, it's like I felt lifeless. I didn't have no energy. I could barely move. I also had a red welt that went from my left shoulder all the way down to my right hip across me, and it was just solid red, and it just disappeared within an hour.
I also had a question. This actually goes to the movie. I remember the movie. So they have you, like, in a trance. They have, like, your eyes blacked out, which is funny because you said your wife saw, like, blacked out eyes. And you were in a bloody shirt walking down, and a cop just saw you, like, in a trance and pulled over. Was any of that true?
No, none of that was true.
So what actually did occur? Like, how did the police officers get involved? Was there like a calling, or did Debbie call? How did that actually transpire?
I'm not sure who called. I wasn't in part of any of that. I'm not sure who actually called the police.
Tony, do you know?
No, it's had to be somebody on scene who they probably called the ambulance and the police when the stabbing occurred. And then the police came, and then they probably spoke to what happened. Well, where's the knife? That kind of thing. And Arnie's laying on the ground, probably unconscious, because he doesn't remember any of it. And so it's really something that the devil's worked. The devil would do something like that. It's tragic. It's sad that this man died, but I honestly believe that it was the devil at work. The devil influenced a human being to perform the worst, and it did.
Yeah, and Arnie, you were saying something. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh no, I was agreeing with what Tony was saying.
Oh,
yeah.
Let me unmute Laura just in case she has anything.
Oh, yeah, no. I was just going by the movie. I was curious what was fact, what was fiction.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to know about like the trial, because I don't know too much about it. I know Ed and Lorraine, when did Ed and Lorraine come back in for the trial? Did they come back in when he was like right arrested, or was it during like the arraignment?
Arnie, do you remember?
No, I know they were always at the trial. They were always present for the arraignments and the hearings. They were always there.
Yeah, because I remember the day it happened at the court when they dismissed the case as far as the devil. It was a big news. It says, the devil was not allowed in the courtroom or something.
Right.
And Ed was so upset about that, saying that the judge was a jerk and the judge blew the case by doing that, because that was the whole defense. I mean, you get it's like if, God forbid, if somebody had a heart attack and then they wake up in the hospital. That's what happened to Arnie. He went unconscious. He doesn't remember anything. He wakes up. He doesn't know what even happened. They had to tell him he stabbed somebody. They had to tell him that. He didn't say, like, how's the guy I stabbed? He woke up. He didn't know what the hell happened. What am I here for? Like, right. You're just he's in a dream state. What am I here for? And they're like, oh, you stabbed the guy. What are you talking about? And then he learned as he went. But Ed had all the documentation. He had eyewitness testimony from forensic scientists, Dr. Jean Grasso. He had priests who would attest to what happened, that the way these things were happening in the house, because they witnessed it, things happening in the house. They had enough evidence to support Arnie's claim. But Arnie and the lawyers couldn't even mention it. They couldn't even mention the word devil. Because they said, how do you plead? He said, not guilty by reason that the devil made him do it. And the judge said, we don't talk about any devil in a court of law. No, that's not. What else you got? Well, they didn't have anything else because that was their defense. So that's how Arnie got convicted of manslaughter.
So Ed and Lorraine were not allowed to testify?
No, they weren't allowed to testify. Nobody was allowed to testify. The judge threw it out as soon as the defense attorney brought up the devil. Said, we're gonna defend this case, and we're gonna prove that the devil influenced Arnie to do this. Arnie was under diabolical possession. The judge stopped the lawyer. He told the lawyer, no, you can't use that. I'm not going to allow a devil defense in my court, is what he said. And he threw that part out. He said, okay, what else you got then? And the lawyer's like, let's have a recess. They didn't have anything else because that was their whole defense of how Arnie came to stab this guy was through demonic possession. So if they can't bring it up, they have no defense. And that's how he got convicted.
No, I'm wondering, what was the prosecutor's case? Like, how are they saying it was manslaughter? What was their argument versus the defense?
Well, they charged it as murder in the first degree. And that was their defense, that there was an argument, and they said that a fight broke out and Alan was the victim of the argument.
First degree is a harsh charge for anybody. I mean, that's like premeditated murder. And you were Yeah.
And
Oh,
the peers found me not guilty of murder in the first degree, guilty of manslaughter in the first degree.
I'm just so surprised a prosecutor would go for premeditation. Like, what would they think was premeditated about
Well,
the crime?
I think that's what they always do, stuff like that, especially back in 1980. Let's go for the worst charge. If they drop it down, then we'll still convict them. That's what they do. That's exactly what they try for, the hardest charge. Well, we're going to prove premeditation, and then they do a little dealing with the judge. Well, and the judge will go, wait a minute now, how do you prove that we can't prove premeditation? Well, let's give him manslaughter because he did stab the guy, and then they make a deal. That's what happened.
So I have a quick question from the chat again from Sarah, which I totally am against this. But for some people, they have utilized this technique. For you, Arnie, would hypnotic regression help in this situation if you wanted to retrieve your memories? Have you ever thought about that route? Because I think it's nonsense. But what about you?
No, yeah, I wouldn't go that route. I never thought about it either.
Yeah,
I was going to say, who would want to remember
that.
No, that wouldn't be right. No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I've heard people trying to say, "Oh, well, I don't remember what I'm going through," and I've heard people say you should go to a hypnotherapist. I'm like, you're on crack. It's like telling a person with drug addiction that finally has overcome drugs to try to relive their great moments of taking drugs again. It's going to make them want to have that moment again. So it's just like, why relive some dark past, right? And you kind of already have to on it. You have to tell your story. You have to, and for some people, you have to defend yourself, which is unfortunate. But you already have to some degree. But why those moments that you should have had? Okay, so I think we have another question. Certain things are said to attract evil and the devil. Beyond all the forms of abuse, what else attracts it to a person?
Well, a lot of things. A million things can attract the demonic. In other words, you could be a perfectly innocent person and still be a victim. Well, what do I mean by that? Okay, well, I'll tell you. I'm walking down the street with my friend. And as I'm walking down the street, two guys cross the road and come at my friend who happens to be carrying a backpack or something. They want to steal it. So I come to the defense of my friend with these two robbers, like, hey, buddy, back off. And they start beating me up. They pummel me to the ground. I wasn't their victim now, was I? But I'm what's called a sole victim. I went to his aid, and as a consequence, I got beat up. What happened to Arnie? Same thing. He's a sole victim, actually, because but he went a little farther. He did it differently. It was not the same as what I just said. He invited it to challenge him. So in other words, the devil took up his challenge. He wasn't originally the target. David was. But Arnie made himself the target in a different way by saying, come to me, do something to me. I'm the man. So you could be a sole victim. In other words, you could have a strong personality. You could kind of believe in God. You could believe in God. But when you challenge the demonic like that, you got a problem. Or if you, like I said before, not abuse. I didn't say just abuse. I said weak-willed. So somebody who's weak-willed, who never thinks about God, who never prays to God, doesn't care about God, he opens himself up if he's a civilized person. Now, I'm not talking about a guy in the jungle who doesn't even know the name God. That's different. Somebody who doesn't know anything, it's not his fault. But it's your fault if you're a civilized American and you say, well, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. You're opening yourself up. I don't care what you say. You're opening yourself up because you have no armor. So weak-willed, sole victim, physical abuse by you or somebody else to you who makes you weak-willed, a drug addict, an alcoholic, a million reasons. There's a lot of different things that entice the devil to try you, to go after you. In other words, if I'm walking down the street, if an old lady's walking down the street, Mike Tyson's walking down the street, who's the two robbers going to grab? Mike Tyson or the old lady? So it's it goes for the weakest part.
Laura, do you have anything?
Yeah, well, I wanted to ask about David. Like after you challenged, did it just completely stop for David?
No, the case was ongoing. He was still under attack and coming under possession. I believe the final exorcism was when I was incarcerated, and they finally exorcised and got them to say their names and to leave them.
David today, does he have any like how's he doing today? Does he have any still like paranormal experiences, or has it like completely cleared away for him?
I know of. I think he's in construction. He's doing his own thing. Everything's been good with him. I haven't seen him in quite a while, but I believe everything's good with him.
To add Sarah to the diagram again, I think it's a great question. Are there any unresolved questions you have about the case that you wish you had answers to? I think for somebody that gone through something like that, there has to be something that revels in your head that maybe if you did something differently or why this happened to you, beside the challenging. Like I think many people challenge every day and said like you can go up to Mike Tyson, use Tony's analogy, and threaten him, and he might punch you, but there might be a chance he doesn't punch you either. So, do you have any unanswered questions to why and what you dealt with?
Unanswered questions. I was put in a position. Well, not put in a position. I was involved in something that took place for a little boy, and I stood my ground to try to help him and the family and protect them. Why it happened to the little boy, you always wonder how it just came about in that one instance when he started to come under this attack. But it's in challenging the demons. The reason I challenged at the moment, I told him to take me on because of the abuse that he was going through. I used to try to shield him with my body. I couldn't do that, but we used to pray holy water with the holy salts and oils. And that was the only way we could really protect him. And when I challenged him, I was just trying to divert that evil to me to free him.
So my thing to add on to that before I hand it over back to Laura is I'm a person that says that, and I say this utmost, I would take a bullet for anybody. I don't care whoever you are, if you're my enemy, even like not like in a war sense, but like I would take a bullet for you if it meant saving somebody's life. Like I know my life is important, but so in retrospect, to take me out of the equation and take you into the equation, Arnie, if you had to go through this all again, would you save David again? Would you challenge the spirit, or how would you do it differently this time? Would you take the bullet for him?
I mean, I learned that that was the wrong thing to do because I look what came of it. Nothing good.
Yeah.
At least David was saved, but it would happen the same way just by following through prayer and religion and carrying it on that way with the priest, working with them instead of because I challenged them and nothing came good of it in the end.
Laura?
I guess I'll ask Tony and Arnie. Do you think anything was learned from all this, or is there any advice you could give to others that could possibly, be coming across something like this?
Do you want to go on?
Yeah, I would tell others if you're involved in anything like this, first of all, don't open yourself up to this kind of activities because it's really not good, and you don't understand the power and the threat that's involved until you're actually involved in it. I would tell them if there are situations, they should go after the clergy and try to get as much help as possible because that's the only way to go. And don't make the mistake I made, for sure. And keep your faith strong That's
Yeah.
about it, right?
Yeah. I mean, try to stay away from that kind of stuff. Most people listening today are never going to have that kind of problem. Uh, it's the people who, and I'm not talking about you, Arnie, I'm just talking about in general, today, in today's world. It's the people who dabble in occult practices, go to see card readers, psychic readers all the time. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they don't know how to protect themselves, the card readers and the psychics. They're drawing in spirits, they're asking questions, but they're not fully protecting themselves, what's coming through to them. And that could spread problems. Using a Ouija board, you're asking questions of the unknown. So, but what Arnie said is all true. Don't dabble in stuff like that. You know, like Ed used to say at the end of his lectures all the time, you want to see spirits, you want to talk to spirits, go to church. So what he meant was, don't be playing on Ouija boards. You know, don't be trying to find out things and, oh, I want to see a ghost. Let's go to a graveyard. You could do those things if you know how to protect yourself. Like if you go to a graveyard or anywhere, a haunted house investigation, you should envision yourself in a glowing white halo of light all around your physical aura, a bright, glowing light. And we call that a Christ light or God's light of protection. And then you ask God to protect you from any evil spirits or evil entities while you're there at the graveyard or investigating, you know, and have strong faith that the Lord will protect you and say prayers. So spiritually, just try to be a good person. That's what I would say, because, you know, a lot of people would say that good works don't get you into heaven. Well, I don't know about that. Faith in God does, and being a good person though goes along with that. So every time you do something good, God smiles. Every time you do something cruel, hateful, evil, the devil smiles. So you want to make that pathway to God. You want God to be smiling more because you want a pathway to him. But every time you do something that's not quite right, you know, you're inviting that demonic entity to smile more and maybe influence you more. Who knows? So the whole thing is just to be the best person you could be, I guess, Arne. You know, I mean, Arnie's done it for all 35 years or so, being the best he could be. We're all basically good people. But once in a while, you fall into that trap of doing things, and, well, you did it once and it's okay. You know, whatever. I took illegal drugs. That was okay once. I'll do it again. That's the temptation at work. So just stay away from all that kind of stuff. Stay away from evil things and do good things. And I think everything will be fine.
Yeah. Definitely good advice, for sure.
Yeah.
We're getting down to the last 5 minutes. Sorry, I'm going to mute Laura for a second and allow her to, at the end, bring anything up she's, of course, dealing with, and, you know, her big move to LA. Maybe she could give some disclosure to our listeners and viewers of why she moved to LA. But, Arnie, first for you, do you have anything that's happening? Maybe like lectures or a book of your autobiography of what you dealt with, what you've received. Do you have anything going on in your life in the paranormal or in life general that you would like to talk about?
Well, we have the Paracon coming up October 29th. Hopefully everybody will attend. We'll have the book will be there, and we'll be speaking there, so hopefully we can help people along and teach them what to do and what not to do.
Perfect. Yeah. Hopefully I'm back again, Tony. No, just
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah. I hope you come back. Yeah, we're going to have the Paracon at the Mohegan Sun Casino in Uncasville. It's a big casino, Mohegan Sun, on October 29th. Arnie will be there. I'm going to have some big guest speakers besides Arnie. His book will be there. The Devil Made Me Do It. Sorry, The Devil in Connecticut book, which is a true story. And Arnie's going to sign copies of the book while he's there, too. It's going to be fun, though. It's going to be really good. I'm going to have the museum artifacts there, too, at the Paracon. It's going to be one of the big ones. Last time we had about 2,000 people. We couldn't hold any more at the Waterbury Marriott, but at the Mohegan Sun, they said we could have up to like 7,000 people if we want. because it's so big of a casino ballroom, you know. So we hope we come there because James, you'll probably be there, right? And I know
I hope
Arnie will
so.
be there,
I will be
and,
there.
and talk about a lot of things, and learn a lot more things about the paranormal. So that's what we got going on.
Yeah, and then Tony, for people that, as like I said at the beginning of the show, you are the director of NESPR.
Yes.
And how can people get in contact you with that way, especially if they believe they are dealing with similar thing that David and Arnie went through?
Yeah, all they need to do is go to the Warrens website. It's my website now, but it's warrens.net, WARRENS.net, warrens.net. And there's a place to contact me on there if you got any kind of problems going on. And we can give you advice on what to do and how to protect yourself and how to get out of any situation you might be in.
And one more thing for you, Tony. Have you ever thought about writing a book?
Yeah, I have, and I think I will. I at one time I had a couple chapters done, but I want to make it a real experience. You know, something that we went through with Ed and Lorraine together. There's a lot of things to talk about. Ed was a real knowledgeable guy, probably the most knowledgeable person I ever met when it came to demonology and the paranormal realm. I used to go to his house just to visit, and every time I walk in the house, Lorraine would be in the kitchen. And she's a real noted psychic, of course, but she'd say, "Oh," I'd say, "Where's Ed?" "Oh, Ed's down in the office off the museum." And I'd go down there and he'd be reading about the paranormal, about different things, trying to learn more and more. I'm talking about in 1998, he was already doing it for 40 years, but every day he wanted more knowledge. So I have a lot of knowledge. You have a lot of knowledge, James, but our knowledge is not really much compared to how much Ed knew. And that's why when people ask me about, "Oh, you're a demonologist, right?" I hate to say that, because to me, Ed was the one. Ed was the guy who knew everything about the paranormal and about demonology. I know a lot, but nothing close to him, you know.
Well, definitely, I cannot wait to read your book one day and look forward to it.
Thank you.
Laura, what about you? What you got coming up? And what is your adventures in LA? Can you disclose that?
I can't. I'm not allowed to talk about anything, actually. But I do have one more question for Arnie and Tony. Ed and Lorraine are so loved, and you guys got to know them personally. And, I wish I could have gotten to meet them. But is there something they ever said to you, a quote or a lesson that you could tell us from them that you learned or something?
Yeah, well, I have something. Ed used to always say to me that he says, "You want to be a turkey, hang out with turkeys. You want to be an eagle, hang out with eagles, fly with the eagles." And he also said to me one time, "Never kick a man when he's down." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Tone, everybody can be down and out once in a while. Never kick a guy when he's down, because you never know what he's going through." So I remembered that. You never kick a guy when he's down. And he also told me that he doesn't have all the answers either, because he said to me once, he goes, "Tone, if anybody tells you that they know everything about the paranormal, they're full of it." I said, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Because we're not meant to know everything. It's the mysteries of the universe. God doesn't want us to know everything until we pass on. Then we'll have answers. But we're just chipping this." He said, "We're just chipping the surface."
Arnie,
So that's
how
a
about
couple
you?
of things he said. Hey, Arnie, you have something?
Yeah, I just had a lot of respect for Ed and Lorraine Warren. I owe them a lot. They were great people, and I built a good relationship with them. And I always hung out with them and helped them out with tree work or whatever they needed. And they just gave good advice to just keep my faith up and help me grow my faith even stronger. And yeah, they were just beautiful people.
And one more thing, real quick. Lorraine used to say to the audiences, "Thought has substance." And I used to ask her later, "Well, what do you mean, Lorraine?" She said, "Thought has substance. When you think things, it has a meaning. It does things. So if you think bad thoughts, bad things can happen. You draw it to you." She used to say that to me a lot, like, negativity draws negativity. Positivity draws positivity. Always be a positive person, is what she told me. Don't be thinking bad things, because thought has substance. So that was another thing that she used to say, that they used to say.
Perfect. No, Laura, great question. And, everybody, thank you for coming on tonight. Before we get off, you guys stay on for a few minutes if you don't mind after the show. I want to announce our next show in April. Our guest will be Richard Estep, who is a prolific paranormal author, but also wrote one of his best-selling books, actually his number one selling book, called Serial Killers. And he'll be our next guest talking about serial killers, Richard Estep. Go look him up on Amazon and Barnes & Nobles, any place you can buy books. His books are there. So that'll be our next guest, and we'll kind of revert back to serial killers for our third episode. Tony, Arnie, Laura, thank you guys. I hope you all have a great night.
Thank you so much, guys.
Stick on, guys.
Talk to you guys later. See you later.